The city was quiet that night, but in the shadows, something deadly was unfolding, something that would shock the streets and leave the music world reeling. Julio Foolio, a rising star with a reputation for living fast and fearless, didn't see it coming. What started as a normal evening quickly spiraled into chaos, and within moments, everything changed. Witnesses who were in the area describe a scene that felt unreal, like time itself had slowed down, capturing the fear, the confusion, and the horror in every second. People who knew him say Julio lived life on the edge, surrounded by friends, rivals, and fame that brought more attention than safety. But no one expected that attention to turn lethal. The events of that night weren't just random. Something, or someone, had orchestrated it with precision. Shots were fired, messages were sent, and the aftermath would leave an entire community questioning loyalty, trust, and betrayal. The aftermath was instant. Social media exploded. Clips of flashing lights, commotion, and terrified screams spread faster than authorities could confirm details. Fans couldn't believe the news. Fellow artists, some close friends, were left in shock, scrambling to understand how a night that started like any other ended in tragedy. The murder of Julio Foolio wasn't just another headline. It was a moment that exposed the dark, dangerous intersection of fame, rivalry, and the streets. In this video, we're diving deep into what really happened that night, breaking down eyewitness accounts, exploring the timeline, and uncovering details that the mainstream media either missed or ignored. From the moments leading up to the shooting to the shocking final seconds that changed everything, you're about to get a story that nobody expected to unfold in real life. This is the untold story of the Julio Foolio murder, and it's far darker, more chilling, and more complicated than you've ever imagined. Julio Foolio had always lived like the night belonged to him. Even in a city that never slept, he moved with a confidence that made it seem like he could survive anything. The streets knew his name, the cameras followed his every move, and the music world hung on his every lyric. But confidence can be dangerous when the wrong eyes are watching and the wrong people are waiting for the perfect moment. That night, Julio didn't know he had walked straight into a storm. It started innocently. A small gathering at a familiar spot, a friend's apartment, the music pumping through the speakers, laughter filling the air. People were celebrating, joking, unaware that tension lurked just beyond the walls. Julio, always the center of attention, moved between groups, greeting friends, snapping pictures, sharing smiles that masked the constant alertness his life demanded. Fame had taught him to trust carefully, but even he couldn't fully anticipate the danger that was closing in. Outside, the streets were quiet in a deceptive way, the kind of silence that hides movement. Cars passed slowly, shadows stretching across the pavement, and somewhere, eyes followed every step of Julio's entourage. People nearby said they noticed figures lingering, casually blending in with the night, watching, waiting. Nothing seemed out of place at first, just strangers walking by, music still thumping from the building, but subtle signs of the impending disaster were all around. Inside, Julio was oblivious. The night felt familiar, safe even, despite the notoriety that surrounded him. He joked with friends, posted videos for his fans, and laughed at stories that reminded him of where he came from. He thrived in these moments, living fast, loud, and fearless. But the streets that had lifted him could just as easily betray him. Loyalty was fragile, and in the shadows, betrayal had already taken shape. Then it happened. A sudden disturbance outside the building, a sound so sharp it cut through the bass and chatter, drew attention. Windows rattled, people froze, and Julio instinctively knew something was wrong. He stepped toward the source, curiosity and instinct warring within him. Before anyone could react, chaos erupted. Shots rang out, echoing off the walls, bouncing through the streets, turning celebration into panic. Friends screamed, ducked for cover, and scrambled for safety. Julio tried to move, but the first bullet found its mark. Pain exploded through him, sharp and sudden, and the night that had promised laughter became a nightmare. Witnesses would later describe the scene as surreal. Some said time slowed, capturing every detail: the flash of the gun, the expressions of shock, the scramble to escape. Others recalled the terrifying sound of bullets, the chaos, the panic that spread like wildfire. It was over in seconds, but the aftermath would echo for weeks, months, and even years. Julio lay in the street, the life and energy that had always defined him now slipping away in front of everyone who had come to see him alive. The immediate chaos gave way to sirens, flashing lights, and a flurry of law enforcement arriving on the scene. People yelled, witnesses were questioned, and social media lit up faster than any first responders could manage. Videos circulated almost instantly, clips of flashing lights, terrified screams, and people running in every direction. The city, which had always celebrated Julio, now faced a collective shock, trying to process that one of its brightest stars had been violently taken in a matter of seconds. Even before authorities confirmed details, rumors and speculation began spreading. Who was responsible? Was this personal? Was it tied to rivals? Friends and fellow artists scrambled for information, some calling emergency contacts, others rushing to hospitals. The narrative started to form, piecing together eyewitness accounts, surveillance footage, and the chaotic fragments left behind. But one thing was already clear: Julio Foolio's life had been violently interrupted, and the city's perception of safety, loyalty, and trust had shifted in an instant. And yet, even in the face of tragedy, some details remained murky. Who planned it? Who pulled the trigger? Why that night? In that place? As investigators worked frantically to answer these questions, the music world mourned not just the loss of a talent, but the reminder of how fragile life could be when fame, rivalry, and street realities collide. That night, Julio Foolio's story changed forever, and for those who survived, it would become a moment they could never forget. The streets were still echoing with sirens when the first investigators arrived. Yellow tape cordoned off the area, flashing lights reflecting off the asphalt as a small crowd of stunned onlookers gathered at a distance. Some were crying, others were frozen in disbelief, and a few pulled out their phones, recording every chaotic moment. For those close to Julio, the sense of betrayal was immediate. He had survived streets and rivals before, but this was different. This wasn't a brush with danger. This was deliberate, targeted, and executed with cold calculation. Friends and fellow artists scoured social media, trying to find clues, but all they found were fragmented videos, screaming fans, and rumors that spread faster than facts could be confirmed. Each clip painted the scene in vivid detail: the panic, the confusion, and the moment Julio fell, slipping from life into chaos in seconds. Law enforcement worked quickly, but even they faced challenges. The area had been busy earlier in the evening, leaving dozens of potential witnesses, each with slightly different perspectives. Surveillance cameras from nearby businesses were scoured for clues, revealing glimpses of the vehicle, the movements of the shooters, and a trail of evidence that, if interpreted correctly, could point to the perpetrators. Every frame was analyzed, every shadow examined, but piecing it together took painstaking time. Meanwhile, the impact rippled through the music community. Fellow artists who had collaborated with Julio or shared the stage with him released statements, some expressing grief, others shock, and a few warning about the dangerous world that fame often brought along with it. Social media became both a platform for mourning and a feeding ground for speculation. Fans debated motives, potential suspects, and whether this attack was linked to rivalries, street conflicts, or something deeper, hidden beneath the public persona of the artist. As investigators dug deeper, a timeline began to emerge. Julio had arrived at the gathering with friends in the early evening, moments after the crowd had formed. Security measures were present but insufficient. The attackers exploited the small gaps, approaching undetected. Shots were fired in quick succession, leaving no room for reaction, no opportunity to escape. In those few seconds, lives were changed forever. Friends recounted how some tried to shield him, how others ran for cover, but the chaos was too sudden and too violent to resist. Amid the immediate investigation, law enforcement faced the reality that this wasn't just another case. It was a high-profile, high-pressure situation. Every decision mattered. Every lead could make or break the case. Detectives worked tirelessly, interviewing witnesses, gathering surveillance footage, and piecing together a narrative from the fragments left behind. The aim was not just to find justice, but to prevent further tragedy, to send a message that even the most brazen attacks could be investigated and, hopefully, solved. Even as details emerged, the human cost became painfully clear. Friends and family struggled with grief and shock, fans grappled with disbelief, and the music community faced a reminder of the dangerous edge that fame, rivalry, and street life often carry. Julio Foolio had lived fast, fearless, and untouchable, or so it seemed. But in one devastating night, his life was cut short, leaving a trail of unanswered questions, sorrow, and outrage that would linger far longer than the headlines. As the news spread, the city felt different, heavier, almost as if the streets themselves were holding their breath. Social media exploded, with fans and fellow artists reacting in real time. Messages of grief, disbelief, and anger flooding timelines. Every clip, every photo, every snippet of video was scrutinized, replayed, and debated endlessly. People who had never met Julio felt connected to the tragedy, drawn into the chaos simply because his life had been so public, so visible, so larger than the streets that claimed him. Amid the online storm, rumors began to circulate. Some suggested rivalries within the music scene, whispered tensions between crews that had been simmering for months. Others pointed to street conflicts, old grudges that never faded, now intersecting with fame in the deadliest way. No one knew for certain, and the ambiguity made the fear tangible. Anyone could become a target, anyone could be next. Every message, every reposted clip, carried a trace of anxiety, a reminder of the fragility of life in a world where attention, envy, and loyalty collided. Friends and collaborators spoke out cautiously, aware of the danger and the media scrutiny. Some recounted the moments leading up to the night, painting a picture of Julio as lively, energetic, always aware, yet trusting enough to let down his guard for a brief evening. They described his charm, his humor, his ability to draw people in, and the magnetic personality that had won him fans and foes alike. But those same qualities, they realized too late, had also made him vulnerable. Someone had watched, studied, and waited for the perfect opportunity to strike, and strike they did. Investigators began piecing together the night with painstaking care. Surveillance footage revealed a dark vehicle lingering near the gathering, and a small group of individuals moving with quiet precision. Witnesses described seeing shadows slip in and out of alleys, blending with the crowd, almost invisible until the first shot shattered the moment. It became increasingly clear that this was no impulsive act. It had been planned, mapped out, and executed with chilling efficiency. The questions multiplied. Who gave the orders? Who was on the scene? Was this retaliation, rivalry, or a calculated power move? Even as authorities worked, the streets continued to buzz. Fans, friends, and fellow artists speculated endlessly, some eager to provide their own theories, others anxious to defend or denounce names thrown into the mix. The divide between public curiosity and private grief was stark. For Julio's family and inner circle, every rumor was a knife twisting in their hearts. For strangers and social media audiences, every snippet was entertainment, drama, and breaking news rolled into one. It was a dangerous, unpredictable mix, one that amplified the emotional fallout and made the search for answers even more urgent. Meanwhile, the narrative of Julio Foolio as an untouchable figure began to shift. The man who had seemed fearless, almost invincible, was now a symbol of vulnerability in a world where attention and power were double-edged swords. The incident forced even casual observers to confront uncomfortable truths about fame, loyalty, and the real dangers lurking behind music, money, and influence. The city had witnessed a star fall, but the ripples extended far beyond one life. It was a reminder that no one was truly safe, that reputation and bravado could only shield you so much. Amid the chaos, investigators focused on key leads, tracking movements, analyzing cell records, and interviewing anyone who had been in proximity that night. Patterns began to emerge. A recurring name here, a suspicious vehicle there. But certainty was elusive. Every step required caution, because in a world so entangled with alliances, fame, and street credibility, one misstep could cost lives. Every piece of evidence, every witness, was a critical puzzle piece in understanding not just what happened, but why. The city's reaction mirrored the complexity of the investigation. Vigils were held, messages of condolence poured in, and yet, in parallel, fear and speculation thrived. Fans dissected footage, trying to reconstruct the night themselves. Rumors of retaliation circulated, causing unease among those in the same circles. What had begun as shock now deepened into paranoia and mistrust. Julio's death wasn't just a headline. It was a catalyst, exposing a dangerous, invisible web of tension, ambition, and unresolved grudges that had always existed just below the surface. Through it all, one truth remained undeniable. Julio Foolio's life had ended violently, but his story was only beginning to unfold. The investigation would reveal fragments, the streets would whisper theories, and the world would continue to watch, waiting for justice or revenge to surface. And in that waiting, the impact of his murder settled, lingering over every corner of the city, a chilling reminder of how quickly life can change, and how deep the shadows run when fame, power, and danger collide. The days after the shooting felt surreal. The neighborhood where Julio had been killed was buzzing with whispers, with residents reluctant to speak too loudly but unable to hide the tension. Every corner seemed heavier, every shadow more pronounced. People passed one another with cautious glances, as if everyone was silently asking the same question. Who was next? Rumors moved faster than official statements, each one twisted and magnified, making it impossible to separate fact from fear. Friends and family of Julio tried to cope, but grief was complicated by anger and disbelief. Some were haunted by the replay of that night, flashes of lights, the sound of shots, Julio falling. Others wrestled with guilt, replaying moments when they might have convinced him not to go out, or when they could have done something differently. The sense of helplessness was overwhelming. It wasn't just a loss, it was a violent rupture, one that left them questioning safety, loyalty, and trust in ways that couldn't be measured. Investigators doubled down, knowing that the first 48 hours were critical. Leads had to be followed, witnesses questioned, evidence collected before it disappeared or was tainted. Surveillance footage from nearby streets was scoured repeatedly. Each frame was studied for movement, vehicle make, timing, and behavior. Even the smallest detail, a reflection in a window, a shadow passing a streetlight, could be the key to understanding what had been meticulously planned. The precision of the attack made it clear this wasn't a random act of violence, and whoever orchestrated it had confidence, resources, and ruthlessness. Meanwhile, the public fascination escalated. Fans and media outlets dissected every video clip, every comment from friends, and every social media post. Speculation ran rampant. Some suggested that the attack was the culmination of long-standing rivalries, while others pointed to jealousy, betrayal, or revenge. Every theory carried weight for different people, depending on what they wanted to believe. For many, the tragedy had transformed into a spectacle, something to follow, analyze, and comment on in real time. For those closest to Julio, it was anything but entertainment. Witnesses who had been near the scene continued to provide fragments of insight. Some recalled the quiet movements of the shooters, blending with the crowd, slipping into alleys, and retreating unnoticed. Others remembered the chaos, the screams, the scattered belongings, the sudden scramble to escape. Yet even with multiple accounts, a full picture remained elusive. The speed, precision, and coordination of the attack suggested planning, strategy, and knowledge of Julio's movements. It wasn't just opportunistic, it was calculated. In the midst of grief and confusion, friends and collaborators struggled with conflicting emotions. The loss of Julio was deeply personal, But the fear of retaliation loomed large. Some considered leaving the city. Others began moving in smaller groups, and a few sought to protect themselves with caution that was almost instinctual. Music, reputation, and alliances were suddenly intertwined with survival, creating a landscape where every decision carried consequences far beyond what most outsiders could imagine. Even the streets themselves seemed altered. Local hangouts that Julio had frequented felt emptier, quieter, and more tense. Murmurs of the incident lingered, punctuated by anxious glances at passing cars and strangers. The balance of power and perception had shifted. People realized that what had happened to Julio could happen to anyone. Fame offered visibility, yes, but also vulnerability. Those who had once seemed untouchable were suddenly reminded of mortality in the most brutal way. As investigators pieced together the timeline, the emotional stakes became more visible. Each discovery, each fragment of evidence, intensified the atmosphere. Families clung to hope that justice would come quickly, but the reality was harsher. Organized acts like this required patience, skill, and resources. Finding the perpetrators would take more than determination. It would require connecting dots across months of surveillance, testimony, and street knowledge. Throughout it all, Julio's presence remained palpable. His music continued to play. His social media accounts buzzed with messages, and the city couldn't help but feel the void left behind. The tragedy had not only taken a life, it had exposed a hidden world where power, envy, and violence intersected with fame in ways most people could never fully understand. The search for answers was ongoing, but the emotional ripples were immediate, sweeping across friends, family, fans, and even those who had only known his name. And in that tension, in the weight of grief, fear, and uncertainty, one fact was undeniable. The story of Julio Foolio's murder was far from over. Every witness, every clue, and every rumor carried the potential to reveal the truth, but also the possibility of more pain. In the wake of that night, the city was changed forever, and the shadow of what had happened hung over every corner, every street, and every moment that followed. Weeks passed, but the weight of that night lingered like a shadow over the city. Every corner Julio had walked, every street he had claimed as familiar, seemed to hum with memory. Friends, family, and fans replayed the moments over and over. The laughter before the chaos, the sudden eruption of violence, the chaos that followed. But behind the grief, questions burned brighter than ever. Who had done this? Why? And how had someone so bold, so calculated, slipped past everything and everyone to strike with such precision? Investigators were relentless, chasing every lead, no matter how small. Phone records were analyzed, surveillance footage reviewed frame by frame, and witnesses called in repeatedly to clarify small but crucial details. The challenge wasn't just identifying the shooters. It was untangling the web of connections, motives, and hidden grudges that had allowed the attack to happen. Every clue suggested a network, a plan, a deliberate targeting that went far beyond simple street violence. This was organized, calculated. Meanwhile, the city was alive with speculation. Online forums buzzed with theories. Social media threads dissected every known detail, and rivalries that had once been whispers in the background now took center stage. Every supposed ally, every old feud, was examined under a microscope. Fans demanded answers, and the pressure on law enforcement mounted. Even as authorities worked behind the scenes, the public scrutiny created a new kind of tension, one that threatened to expose witnesses, disrupt leads, and complicate the investigation. Those closest to Julio struggled in their own ways. Some became fiercely protective, moving in groups and avoiding the streets at night. Others questioned loyalties they had taken for granted, wondering who might have been involved, even indirectly. Trust, once assumed, became a fragile commodity, and everywhere, the presence of violence was tangible, a reminder that fame had made Julio a target, but it also left everyone around him vulnerable. As investigators dug deeper, fragments of the puzzle began to emerge. The dark vehicle seen near the scene was traced to multiple leads, some dead ends, others pointing toward individuals with histories of both street influence and proximity to music circles. Witnesses provided descriptions of movements, voices, and even subtle signals that suggested coordination. Slowly, a picture formed. Not complete, but enough to confirm what everyone had feared. Julio's murder had been planned by someone who knew him, someone who understood his routines, and someone willing to act with ruthless precision. The human impact of this revelation was profound. Friends and family grappled not only with grief but also with the realization that the violence was personal, deliberate, and preventable in some way. Fans mourned not just the life lost but the circumstances surrounding it, reflecting on the dangerous intersection of fame, loyalty, and street life. The public debate grew heated. Some called for justice through legal channels, others speculated on revenge, and the social media storm only intensified the emotional climate. Despite the chaos, the investigation pushed forward. Detectives followed leads to multiple locations, uncovering connections, threats, and potential accomplices. Each discovery was tense, fraught with uncertainty, and heightened the sense that this murder was a message as much as a crime. Whoever orchestrated it wanted the world to see that power, reach, and influence came at a cost, and that even someone as prominent as Julio Foolio could be brought down in a matter of moments. Yet amidst the investigation, Julio's presence remained unshakable. His music continued to resonate, his story circulating in news outlets, and his legacy growing stronger even in death. The tragedy had revealed a harsh truth, that life could change in an instant, and that the line between admiration and danger was thin, blurred, and ever-present. Every moment after his death was a reminder of both the brilliance he carried and the peril that followed him. The city learned something that night, and everyone who knew Julio, directly or through his music, felt the weight. The murder was not just a headline. It was a stark, vivid example of what happens when ambition, rivalry, and opportunity collide. Justice would take time, answers would come slowly, and some pieces of the puzzle might never be fully revealed. But one fact remained undeniable. Julio Foolio's life, talent, and energy had left a mark that could never be erased, and the events of that night would echo far longer than anyone could have imagined. In the aftermath, the story of Julio Foolio became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the fragility of life, the danger of fame, and the shadows that always linger when power, envy, and street realities intersect. And as the city moved forward, it did so under the haunting knowledge that one night could change everything, and that one life, so vibrant and untouchable, could vanish in the blink of an eye. The story of Julio Foolio is more than just a tragedy. It's a chilling reminder of how quickly life can change, how fame can attract danger, and how one moment can leave an entire city in shock. From the laughter-filled night to the devastating chaos that followed, every detail of that evening tells a story of ambition, loyalty, and the harsh realities lurking behind the spotlight. If this story shocked you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on real-life events that the world can't stop talking about. Drop a comment below and tell us what moment stood out to you the most. Share this video with friends and family because some stories aren't just watched, they are felt. The truth about Julio Foolio's life, his rise, and his untimely death is out there, and together, we'll uncover every shocking detail. Don't miss a single moment.